Today I'm here with Liz May, and Liz is going to share her testimony how Jesus has delivered her and saved her through a dark past and brought her into a place where life and future now looks wonderful. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, thank you.
Can I start by asking you if Jesus has been good to you?
He has, more than I knew.
I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you for agreeing to sharing. Where should we start? Did you grow up in a Christian family, or when did you meet Jesus?
No, my mom always took us to church. We started out and I got baptized at a Presbyterian church. Okay. Always gone to church off and on through middle school with one of my best friends. It was a Christian church. Looking back, God's always been there.
Wow.
And I see it, now as I'm older that He's always been there. Household was up and down. So we didn't always go to church. If I did, it was mostly with one of my friends. So, yeah.
And then, as you grow older, you start to make decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
What kind of decisions did you make, or where did life take you?
I started drinking and smoking cigarettes at a very young age, like 13.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Kind of always, I was the baby of the family. So, I don't know, I always felt like I was the protector, even though I was the youngest, because I don't have kids. So they all have kids. So if there was something going on, I wanted to take care of everything, because if something happened to me, I don't have kids. I'm not leaving nobody behind. Got in a relationship when I was about 17 for about 4 years. It was abusive.
Oh,
yeah. He was a boxer, so I got a lot of the anger.
Oh. Did you also get the physical?
Very physical. Oh. Yeah, very, very physical. And like I said, looking back, I see that God was there. He protected me. And there was times where he would stop working and I was the only one working. And so made it through, with $50 till the next payday. And, he could get good jobs. He was an electrician.
Yes.
But yeah, I got to the point where I couldn't take it no more. And I felt the only way I had out, because I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to, burden my parents. Oh, okay. I felt like I was a burden. I didn't want to burden my parents. Didn't want to go to my sisters or my brothers. Everybody had kids. So I stuck it out. And then finally one day I was just like, Lord, I can't do this no more. And God's honest truth. He got in the shower and I said, I felt the only way out was to go to jail. And so I started stabbing the shower, and I was like, if I hurt him, I hurt him. Wow. At least I'll be away from him.
Yes.
I did cut his leg, not bad, but I cut his leg. He got out of the shower and he's like, I get it. You're done. And I was like, I'm done. And because every time I would try to leave, it would become a fight. He'd pull me back by my hair. It was always physical.
Yes.
So then I got out of that. Then I started drinking a lot more. Drinking took priority over everything. Oh. I was 100% functioning alcoholic.
So you continued to work and
I've always worked. I have always worked. I've never not worked. I've worked since I was 16.
Oh, okay.
Always full-time jobs. Yes. I put 100% into my job. And that's one thing I've always done. Like my mom taught us that, to work. And so full-time, worked all the time. And then.
So on the outside, you looked like you held together.
Yeah.
But really you were not.
And I remember times, he would always hit where the bruises weren't going to get seen. And so I always had bruises like under my shirts and on my legs and stuff. And one time, there was a knot on the head and, so stuff like that. But yeah, so I got out of that relationship. I just completely walked away. I went to my sister's, stayed there with her for a little while. And then I was still going to work, but then I would get off work and I'd pick up a 12-pack on the way home and I'd be drinking it on the way home. And like I said, looking back, even though I was doing that, God had me protected.
Yes.
Because I never got a DUI. Wow. I never got a DWI. I never wrecked, never nothing. Wow. Always made it home fine. Got up for work the next day like clockwork every time.
Where were you with the Lord during this time?
I would cry out to him.
Yes.
I would cry out to the Lord, like, help me. You know, I want to get out of this. You know, when I was in the relationship, I want to change. I want to get out of this. But I never turned and went to the church. No. You know, friends would say, hey, I'm praying for you. You know, come to church. The girl that I used to go to church with in middle school. And I just wouldn't. No. I'm like, no, because I felt I wasn't ready, but I was also like, I would come up with excuses. You know, like, oh, well, for instance, the Cowboys play Sunday at noon. I'm not going to go to church. You know, we're going to go party. We're going to go have drinks and tailgate. You know, it was always an excuse.
And you know, was it like you knew about Jesus, but you haven't really committed your life to him fully? Oh.
And then it was like, I would hit a down slope and I'd be like, okay, Lord. I'd cry out to the Lord, but I still wouldn't like go to the church house or nothing. But I would cry out to the Lord, you know, okay, Lord, help me. I don't want to be like this no more. And then I'd be good for a couple of days. And then I'm like, oh, it's happy hour. It's Thursday. And there I would go again, doing it again. Then I ended up getting in another relationship for about 8.5, 9 years. And at the beginning of that, it was more drinking because that's what I did.
Yes.
The first year and a half we were dating, I could tell you every day of the week what bar we were going to be at, what time. Like it was clockwork for me. Like I said, I chose that over everything.
Oh wow!
And so he was Catholic, and we would go to church sometimes on Sunday, you know. And then afterwards, it was like I felt conviction. I felt like, how am I going in the house of the Lord and I'm hungover? Or I'm thinking about what we're fixing to do afterwards and I want to go have a drink, you know? And the Catholic Church just wasn't for me. It wasn't. And so I was like, so then we tried, you know, I told him, I was like, at the very beginning, there was a lot of drinking. And then on top of that, drug dealing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I never used, but I sold with him. We sold drugs.
Yes.
My thing was cigarettes and alcohol. And so after about a year and a half, I was like, we can't do this.
No.
My mom had came to the house and I was cleaning and she's like, oh, I'll help you. And she moved something. Yeah. And that's where we had a bunch of drugs stashed at. And she was like, and the look on her face, I was like, oh man, like I let her down. Oh. And so she just like covered it back up how it was. And she was like, I'm going to go ahead and go home. And I was like, oh, because my mom was my best friend. And I was like, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah. We were done with the drug selling and all that, but we still were in the bars. We were still going out, still having, you know, all night parties, all the time because we didn't have kids. So it was like, oh, Liz is having the Halloween party or Liz is doing this. And when I say Halloween parties, like I would take off that week of work, decorate my house from top to bottom. Every room had a Halloween theme. But even then I still never felt any kind of spirit or, you know what I mean? Anything from it. And then that, I didn't see any hope in that relationship. It just became like friends and I was miserable. I was miserable. I had gotten really big, almost 300 pounds. And I was like, I'm not going to be this way turning 30. No. And so I was like, I'm done.
And would you say when you were drinking like this, of course it becomes an addiction. Yeah. But did it start out, I know some people self-medicate. They drink because they have anxiety or something like that. Very few people I found drink because they think it tastes so good or enjoy it so much. But maybe you were one of those. Why did you drink? You know, why did it start?
I think it just stems back to, you know, when I was 13 or 14. Yes. You know, I would babysit and the people I babysat for, they'd be like, the husband would be like, hey, we're going to go get you some wine coolers. Looking back now, I'm like, Lord, like I was drinking at 14, babysitting, you know, these kids were 3 and 4, but still, you know, and I've asked God to forgive me for that because I felt now I'm like, whoa, that anything could have happened.
Yes, and so thank God nothing
ever happened. And that's why when I came to the Lord, I was sitting one day looking back in just tears like, wow. You've really always been there. And the way I sum it up is like me and the Lord are on a walking path, and I dropped his hand and I wanted to take this route.
Yes.
And I wanted to see what this path took me to. And the whole time he never left me. He still was waiting at that Y in the path to hold my hand to finish the walk. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, so I got out of that relationship,
Yes.
stayed for about a year by myself, lived with my brother, and just, worked. Like I said, I've always worked. The alcohol has never affected my jobs ever. Even my manager now, because this October will be 10 years sober.
Wow,
and
congratulations. Wow. And thank you, Jesus.
Yes, of course, because I just cold turkey quit. I didn't do classes. I didn't do anything. And so I ended up meeting my husband now, and
was this before you really committed your life to Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I met him at work, and he was like my best friend. We could talk about everything and stuff like that. And his dad's a preacher. And so he's gone through some stuff in his life. And he tells me now, even when we got engaged, he's like, he cried to me. His dad did. And he said, I always prayed, why did my son go through this?
Yes.
He said, and I used to tell him all the time, Lord, send him an angel, send him an angel. Yes. And so now I tease him and I'm like, see, I am an angel. And, even with him, he didn't drink. He drank, but it wasn't like my drink.
No, I understand.
And so I got him, we both quit smoking cigarettes in 2015. He quit drinking right after I did, because he said that he wasn't going to wait to have a beer until I went to sleep out of respect, because he was like, if you're up till 10 o'clock, that means I'm not having a beer till 11 and then I'm up later.
Oh, yes.
But when I quit drinking, it was because I was drunk one Sunday and I texted him and I said, we can just be friends. And that was out of nowhere. Like nothing in our text led up to me telling him that. And 3 days at work, and all I got was shoulder shrugs, nods of the head. And I was like, you're still mad at me? Because I guess in the back of my mind, I could always say I was sorry if I said something when I was drunk.
Yeah, because drinking was an excuse.
Yes,
I understand.
And he said, all I'm going to say is from here forward, your drinking and your attitude is going to dictate how our relationship continues.
Oh.
And I started crying and I said, I'm never going to drink again.
Wow.
And so my mom, she loved my husband. She loved him. And I'm like, I believe our parents felt something different. And yeah, so I haven't drank since then.
Wow.
Haven't smoked cigarettes. Him going to church every Sunday, because he ran the sound for his dad. His dad's a preacher. And I sometimes on Sundays would be like, I'm not going to go to church. And he's like, you're not going to go to church? And he never judged me.
No.
Never judged me. But he just kind of, sometimes I felt like he had that look like, you're awake, you can go.
Yes.
And so my family's always come here. And one of my nieces, she was getting her son's baby dedication. And my sister was like, hey, come to church. And it was when I was newly sober. So it was a lot for me. I was like, oh, these people are hugging me. Like, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm doing all this sober. You know, there's a lot of things that I've done in this almost 10 years. And doing it sober, I'm like, I've done this before, but I can't remember.
So your alcohol maybe was like something that gave you superpower.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was false. I mean, it came with a lot of negative things, but in your world, it worked as an idol almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something else other than God that gave you things you needed.
Yeah, because everybody knew, oh, Liz is here. I carried an ice chest with beer and I carried a bottle. When I did quit drinking at my husband's apartment, just at his apartment, I had 13 different bottles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I look back at certain different times and I realized how much I encouraged him to drink, how much I encouraged my stepdad to drink. And I look at some of the things and I'm like, God, this is just my story.
Yes. But
sometimes I'm like embarrassed by it, but I'm like, no, because what I've gone through can help the next person.
Oh, yes, exactly.
And because, I remember one time my dad telling his friends, don't drink, try to keep up with my daughter. She'll drink you under the table. She can drink. But looking back now, I'm like, that's embarrassing.
Yes. I
you
understand.
know,
it's under the blood. Jesus has washed you and cleansed you. But I can imagine, looking back, was that really me?
Yes.
Yeah. And, for the one who is in Christ, you're a new creation.
Yes.
So we can look at it and we can see, oh, Jesus, you saved me from this meaningless and these terrible things.
Yeah.
And it can be helpful for others.
Yeah.
But I understand what you say, that there are things in life you might be more proud of.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Not that. Not that.
No.
But, and that's the thing about me is I've always been the same. I've always been the loud one. If I see you, I'm going to wave and yell at you. That's just always been
that's
me.
your personality.
That's me. Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, I was the same way when I drank, so there's no different me. The only difference was if like approached or if put in a situation, I would fight. And it was like I would fight to the point where I didn't feel I was doing anything. So there was one lady that they thought I killed her because I had beat her up because I had like blacked out. I just remember seeing a spot and on her lip, and I just kept aiming at it with my fist. And our roommate was like, hey, was she breathing when you left? Because it was at a house party.
Yes.
And he was like, we can't wake her up. And I just sat there crying, and I was like, what? And he was like, you're probably going to have to go stay with my uncle in Mexico for a while.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what did I do? Wow. What did I do?
Yes.
And I called my mom that night, and I was like, Mom, I don't know what to tell you. And I literally that night got my first tattoo on my shoulder, and it said Mom in a heart.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, you're not going to get to see it, because I had called her and told her I did it. And I said, I don't know what I just did. I said, but I didn't stop hurting her. And so that was the only thing, and I've asked God, forgive me for what I did. That wasn't me.
Yes.
But other than that, like, I've always been me. Like, this is me, loud, laughing.
Just on the side. Did she survive?
She did. She did survive. Yes.
That's wonderful. God saved you again.
Because apparently she was that drunk that she was like out of it. And so, but she did
still,
survive.
I mean, and also it's, sometimes we take alcohol lightly. We think of other drugs or something, but many people can control the drink, but not everyone can. And I think also we have to be very careful with the way we speak and with the way we talk about alcohol and how we drink it in things like that, because some people really struggle with it, and it has destroyed so many people's lives.
It has. And I thank God that I stopped and it didn't, and now I'm just like, no, it's not for me.
What, how did you come to the Lord? Tell me.
Honestly, coming here to Capstone, one of my first encounters here when I came, there was a lady up front. I was sitting there, and I was in that like awkward sitting there like, oh, I don't want to be called on, or you know what I mean?
What are they going to do to me?
And plus, like I said, I'm learning all these new things sober. And I remember sitting back by the cameras, and I looked up front, and there's a lady up there, and she's just like worshiping. And the last time I saw this woman, she told me in the bar this many years ago that, because she used to buy drugs from us. Oh. She said, you will never see me here again. And I was like, well, I haven't seen you. No. And she said, it's because I was incarcerated. I'm only here to get my phone and my charger, and you're never going to see me again. Wow. I'm turning my life around. Wow. And so I never saw her again, ever. Wow. And then, so to see her up there, just no care, just praising the Lord and worshiping, I literally got in the car and was like, Lord, this is why I haven't seen her. She's serving you. Wow. Okay. It is going to be okay. Yes. I can, be forgiven. I can change. And so that's what literally triggered me. Yes. And I was like, wow. I got in the car. I called my husband. I shared it with him, and he was like, nobody's judging you. God's not judging you. No. Just ask him to forgive you. He was like, you already know what to do. Yes. So I was like, okay.
So you were alone in your car when you gave your life to Jesus.
Well, I did. And then I was just asking him to, forgive me.
Yes.
And it was still walk. I still, it was still walk. And then, I just kept coming. And at first I would only come if somebody else was coming, or hey, are you going to go? You're not going to go? You're going to go do this? Okay, then I'm going to go do that.
Yes.
And so I had to learn the same way you would go sit at the bar and drink by yourself. Go and serve the Lord.
Yes.
Because the bar did nothing for you.
No.
Go and serve the Lord. You can go by yourself to things. And so I'm like, okay. Wow. So I came to church, and then I'm very hard-headed. And so the Lord has to show me 3 times. And it's always been that way since I've started going to Bible study and, you know, speaking, you know, to the Lord and stuff. And I was looking online. I had been wanting to get baptized.
Okay.
I had been wanting to get baptized, and I was putting it off because, on all honesty, I was scared.
Okay.
Because I was like, oh my gosh, what if I get baptized and the Lord's going to open this door? And what if I'm not ready for that? And so I was doubting myself. Why am I going to, you know, what if I get baptized? That's opening the next door, and I don't know where he's going to take me. And then I was like, oh my gosh. So I was trying to sign up for ladies' night, and this was last year. And I went on the website, and it wasn't there to sign up. And I was like, what? So I called one of my friends, and she's like, oh, well, let me reach out to the lady at the church and see. So she calls me back, and she's like, okay, it should be there now. So I got on, and I went through all the events, and there was nothing on there about water baptism, nothing on there about child dedication. And I'm like, okay, just let me know when it's on there. So then that night, it was about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I'm sitting on the edge of the couch, and I was like, I'm going to check. I'm talking to myself. I'm going to check. So I click on events, and I'm scrolling, and it's not on there, but water baptism's on there and child dedication. And I just look over at my husband, and I said, I think it's time. Wow. This has been 3 times I got online and it wasn't there. And now it's there. I think it's time. And he just looked at me, and he said, to get baptized?
Yeah.
I go, yes. How did you know? And he's like, I just by the way you said it. Yes. And so I filled it out. I was shaking. I was crying. Wow. Just filling it out. I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a big step. So last year on Palm Sunday, I got baptized by Brother Mario.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did it feel like now I make it official? Now there is no turning back. Was it like that kind of moment?
To me, yes. I was very like, okay, God, like, I'm always ready. Like,
yes.
Okay. They always say I'm like a host. I'm a party, party planner, whatever. Yes. And so, I was like, okay, God. So then I was like, where are you going to take me? What are you going to do for me? What are we doing next? Yes. And so I was like, okay. And I feel I started opening up more, I have to be honest about things,
Yes,
so I opened up because again, anything I've gone through, if it can help the next person or the younger person or even somebody older who feels like there's no way or whatever.
Yes.
I tell everybody, share my story.
Wonderful.
Share my story. I don't care. I tell everybody that. You don't need my permission. I'm telling you, share my story because if it will help you or if they want to hear it from me, ring them over, call me. I don't care if it will help somebody.
Yes.
And
I mean, you've been there. You have tried alcohol. You've tried various things and you have seen that it does not satisfy you.
Yeah. It doesn't do nothing. It takes my money.
Yes, it does. And what has Jesus given you?
Everything. Yeah. Like seriously, a sense of peace. Yes. This May will be 4 years that my mom's passed. And I used to think when I was younger, like, how would you act when your mom passes? Cause y'all are like best friends. But he showed me 3 times. We were planning our wedding cause she passed 4 months before I got married. And, we were getting these like wine bottles to put, with candles in them or lights for the memory table. And I was like, okay, my nephew, my grandpa, his grandpa. And we were in the store and it was like, almost like I was watching myself, like an outer body thing. And I looked at them where the bottles were at the store. And I heard God say, get one for your mom. Oh. And I was like, whatever. And then I was like, I'm learning to be faithful. I'm learning to trust you.
Yes.
So I backed up and I got one and I was like, okay, I know she's not been feeling well. Okay. And then 2 weeks before she passed, I used to always text her, what are your numbers? Which meant like her sugar, her oxygen and all stuff like that. And I'd tell her, what are your numbers? And I was getting ready to get in the shower that day and I was breathing normal, felt normal. And I went to open the shower curtain and I felt like my body was like stuttering. And then clear as day, I heard, you don't have to check her numbers no more. I'm taking her.
Oh.
And then the following week, she went to the hospital, and then she passed on Memorial Day, May 28th.
So God prepared you.
He prepared me. And so I lost a nephew in 2020.
Okay.
And he was 27. And my nephews and nieces are like my kids, because I don't have any. And I help raise them, watch them, babysit. And sometimes I feel I struggle more with his passing than my mom's because I feel I was further in my walk with my mom than with my nephew.
Yeah.
And even during all that, I never once had the thought of, I'm going to just have a beer or I'm just going to have a cigarette.
No.
Never had that thought.
Wow.
I turned to my sisters in Christ. They were there for me. Family was there.
Yes.
Read my devotional more, read my word more, and just gave him the time.
Wow.
And then, that happened. And, like I said, God shows me everything in 3. And then, I had teetered back and forth with, is Capstone my home church or am I going to visit somewhere else? And I had some interactions at other churches and I'm like, no. And then I came here one Sunday. I was like, come on, babe, we're going to go.
Yes.
And Pastor Michael was given the story about being in the army and he thought he was walking the straight way, but he was walking the other way. And I was like, that's me. I was like, oh my God. And I just kept writing notes and I was like, babe, this is it. God said, this is where we're going to be. This is where there's a reason we're here.
Yes.
And we're going to do something. I said, this is it. And he was like, okay. And then I was like, I had told him once before, like a year ago, I was like, I'm going to sign up to be new members. And he was like, let's wait. So I mentioned it then and he was like, okay, let's sign up. Well, we weren't able to come in January because he had inventory. And so it's mandatory when we have inventory. Oh, yes. We're both in auto parts. So it's mandatory. And so then the Daniel fast started and the prayer and it was like a fire in me. It lit a whole new fire. I had other sisters like, wow, what's changed? Like, you're like on fire.
Yes.
Like something's changed. And I was like, man, so many people that I would think like, they're not going to talk to me because, I'm tattooed or I'm this and in my head a lot. And they've been so welcoming. And then, going to prayer, I said, every time I'm off work, I'm going to be there, Lord, because you have not failed me.
No.
And I think it got more pure for me so to back up in December, I went and just did, your annual adult physical, check your blood and all that. And she said, well, your EKG, your T-bar is reading down and not up. So I'm going to send you for an EKG.
Yes.
And I'm worst case scenario. And that's what I've been praying for God to deliver me from. And I'm like, oh Lord, I stopped working out. I stopped doing everything because I'm like, oh, it's my heart. Yes. Like, what if it can't take it? Yeah. And I start thinking about what if I'm driving and I pass out? Who's going to help me? So I start thinking about the scenarios instead of just trusting him.
Yes.
So I went through all that in December, stress test, did all this.
Yes.
My manager knew, my best friend at work and my husband. I kept it very 4 people knew. I just didn't want to bring light to it. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to keep getting asked about it and stuff like that.
You had problem enough carrying it yourself.
Yes.
I know. I understand
and
that.
So it was stressing me out, but I was like, Lord, no. So I just kept going to the Lord with it and trusting him. And then I think it was maybe the second week of our fast.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I got to go get my results. Yes. And so I walk in and he comes and he takes me to another room and he's like, okay, I don't see nothing wrong with you.
Wow.
He's like, everything. He was
That's
like,
amazing.
I want you to go back to working out. Your heart can handle it. You handled the treadmill.
Yes.
You handled the stress test.
Yes.
He said, take your vitamins like you were. Because I stopped taking my vitamins. Like, I was like, am I damaging my heart? And so I started, he was like, nice as can be, doctor. And he was like, continue to work out, continue taking your vitamins, continue your active life that you were doing prior to. He said, I don't see no reason to see you anymore. He said, you're an as needed. He goes, if you feel like you feel something's off, your chart's going to be open. Just tell them you want to come see me. He said, and I'll see if it's just you in your mind or if you're okay. He said, but you're fine for now. And as soon as I got out of the building and stepped foot on the parking lot, it was just emotion. And I was like, hold it in. People are going to think you're crazy walking to the car crying. And as soon as I got to the car, I just lost it. And I'm like, Lord, I came to you this whole month, just giving it all to you. And so that day I got home and I was like, babe, I feel like just drained from crying.
Of course.
And I was like, I'm not going to go tonight. You know what? Yes, I am. Because he hasn't failed me. No. So I am going to get up and I am going to go to prayer. And so I felt a switch in me. And I was like, you know, I'm going to be active in the church. We're going to be active. Yes. I was like, he's going to use us.
Yes.
And
God has really been faithful to you. Yes. Now it's you who want to be faithful back.
Yes.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Because I'm like, Lord, you never left me. No. You never left me in the abuse. You never, you know, even in the times of being drunk. One incident I had, you know, leaving the bar at 2:30 in the morning, I helped try to save a guy who got hit on his motorcycle and it killed him. But everybody was driving by him and I stopped my car drunk to try to help save him and ended up meeting his wife and, you know, sharing with her that he wasn't left alone in the street because I didn't want her to have that. No, like he was there alone, like a, you know, a show in the street. Nobody cared. And even then, the officers didn't check me if I was drunk because I was in a white car and they were telling him a white car hit him. Yes. Even then, I didn't get, you know, sobriety check, nothing. And so how can I not be faithful when he has been always so been faithful to me? Always. He's always had me protected.
And I mean, this that you're telling about, the dark things, that's chapter 1.
Yeah.
And that is so exciting. What is, you know, the rest of your story going to look like? Yeah. It had a dramatic beginning and a wonderful, you know, place where Jesus got hold of you. And now, you know,
and it's funny because I used to collect frogs. Okay. I always wanted frog ceramics, anything frog. And
I thought you were having
not real ones. No. Anything like any kind of frog. Yeah. And our cleaning lady where I used to work at, she told me one day, she goes, honey, do you know what frogs stand for? And I was like, no. And she says, it stands for fully rely on God. Wow. And I collected frogs during the time that I was going through all that abuse. Oh. Then when I was with my ex and we were, you know, doing the drinking and the drugs and parties, I was big in unicorns. And to me, I picture unicorns like wild out there, you know, having fun. And it's so funny because I've just gotten in this phase the last couple of years where I'm like, and I got rid of all my unicorn stuff and I'm in like sloths. I love sloths now. And I'm like, this is the phase of my life, babe. It's a slow down phase because God's going to use me now. Yes. And he looked at me and he was like, the way you described it does sum it up. Wow. And I was like, yeah, I said, sometimes I tell myself all the time and I tell people who are like, you know, he's not going to forgive me for what I've done. And I'm like, no. Or if they go through something bad, they're like, you know, I can't believe I'm going through this. And I was like, well, I'm a big believer in sometimes God has to shake us to wake us. Yes, exactly. And I say that all the time. It's because you're being shook right now so you can wake up. Yes. He's shaking us to wake us. And I went through that. And that's why I feel like I'm in my sloth season.
Yeah, and also, I mean, when Jesus calls his disciples, it says he's called them to be with him and then to send them out. Yes. And I mean, it's a period of you coming to Jesus, getting to know him, getting deep rooted in his word. In preparation for service. Yeah. I mean, we're not here just to consume Jesus. We want to serve Jesus with our lives. Yes. But we have to sit at his feet first and really get to know him. And so I think this is beautiful. Yes, it is your sloth time.
It's my sloth time. Yeah. And that's why I say the 30 days, everybody was like, you know, how are you doing it? Yes. And I'm like, no, like I felt a fire. You know, I remember the first Monday we were in the sanctuary and Pastor Michael was saying, if you want to get up and walk in, because I'm a big get up, walk around while I'm praying, singing, worshiping, like that's me at home. I walk around and everything. And I was like, oh Lord, I feel like I need to go up to the altar. I need to go up and just lay it all down, everything I'm praying for. But then I got in my head and I'm like, oh, there's so many people here. Like, what if they're going to be watching me? And Pastor Michael said something again. And I was like, I'm here for me. I'm not here for who's going to see me, who's watching me. And I just got up and it was the first time I've ever gone up and just prayed at the altar. And I sat there just praying. And then when we came back on Tuesday, I sat in the seat. Yes. And again, I felt like God was like, you have that in you. You want to lay it down. Yes. So I got in the aisle and I just was praying and praying. Yeah. And then again in my head, I was like, what if there's people behind me watching me in the aisle? And then instantly I heard, are you here for them or me?
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. And I think
so then I just started praying, and now I'm like, I don't care. And
that's beautiful.
One thing he's worked on me about is, if you say, hey, Sister Liz, can you pray for me? I'll be like, oh, okay. And I go about my way and I'll pray at home for you or whatever. Yes. And he's brought me out of, you're going to pray for her. You're going to pray for her where she can hear you right now.
Here, right now. Exactly.
Yes. And so he's bringing me out of that. And so, I've been making myself do that. I'm like, okay, Lord. So, the first ladies' night in February, I got with the ladies and I was like, oh, okay, there's a few prayer cards. I'll pray, I'll probably get one. Yes. No, I ended up with 2 and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. But how can he use me if I'm not allowing him to use me? So that's why.
And sometimes it requires stepping out of our comfort zone.
My word this year is obedient.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
The word he gave me, obedient. And so I'm trying to be obedient because, again, he's never left me or failed me.
And I mean, also we're obedient to the one who loves us.
Yeah.
To the one who will never let us down.
Yeah.
He who will not shame us. And it's not hard to be, when we see him and when we understand his love.
Yeah.
Obedience comes kind of natural. Yeah. We know that he has our best at,
I'm like, this is what he was wanting. Yes. He wants this, so I can do this. And he's shown me some things. I say all the time, sometimes, am I supposed to be where I'm at, as far as like work or, events that I'm doing. And I have a really good boss. She's, she's a believer and, anything she can do to help, she'll do it. She'll offer. And she's like, hey, is it Bible study? You can leave early today. You want to take the day off, and
what a blessing.
Even for the meeting, even for us to meet up, she was like, I'm going to be out, but today and tomorrow, but, go ahead and leave at this time. It's fine. You can go.
Wow.
And so I told her, I was like, pray for me, boss, and she's been a blessing. She has been a blessing. And she always tells me, you're special. You're someone special and you need to remember that. And then she'll tell me sometimes too, she's like, I see the change in you, like the person you were when you started, because she didn't even know when I started. And I told her, I was like, I don't drink anymore. And I told her when I had got sober and I told her, I was like, I would even drink at lunchtime. There was places around my job that knew I was going back to work and they knew how to cover it up for me. And I was like, I used to drink all the time. And she's like, it never showed.
No.
She said, but I see where you are now.
Wow.
And so when I hear that, I'm just like, where can I go from here?
Wow.
That fire's there. And I'm like, okay, use me where you want to use me. And
and we're so excited. I'm grateful for what Jesus have done, how Jesus has kept you safe through all this mess, and so excited to see what God has in store for you. Thank you so much for sharing. This is really encouraging. Thank you. Do you have any final words you want to, pass on, any wisdom from life or anything you want to say?
Just don't be scared. If you feel you're ready to change, there's somebody that will help you. There's somebody you can talk to. Don't feel like you got to hold it in. I say that all the time. Never feel like you're being judged. It's us in our heads.
Yes.
It's us in our heads, stopping us from doing the Lord's work, or it's us allowing the enemy to make a playground in our head and giving him space instead of that space to the Lord. So never feel like there's not somebody, even if it's not a physical person, the Lord's always there.
Yeah,
He's never going to leave you. Just call out to him and don't be scared.
And he can transform lives.
Yeah,
and he can break addictions.
Yes.
And he can give you a brand new future.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.